In some previous videos, you may have seen me using this apparatus that's called a ladder crane, and I built this device myself, and the objective is to use an extension ladder as a means to get a condenser up to the roof. Now this resolves a few problems. I know a bunch of you people are gonna say, just call a crane and spend the $300. One, you cannot get a crane for that cheap. It's kind of a minimum of 500 bucks. And in addition to that, you also have to deal with coordinating the crane driver. If you can't get in that space, your whole day is shot, and I don't want to have to deal with that, as do many HVAC contractors. And so the ladder crane may seem a little bit unsafe to some people, but I've done this a dozen times and I have yet to have a single problem. The unit does not pull away from the building. Something that you could do is harness yourself and attach yourself to the building, and also do the same for the ladder. You can do as many safety things as you want here, but I decided that I was going to build one of these ladder cranes myself. I built it out of a steel structure and I used a Harbor Freight hoist. But in this video, we're going to revamp that ladder hoist. Now there's a few options here. You can go to laddercrane.com and purchase one of these for about $1,000. But me being the DIY guy that I am, I decided that I was going to pick up a TIG welder and learn how to weld aluminum, build this whole structure out of aluminum, and we're also going to upgrade the hoist to a very much lighter model. Now, if you notice behind me, we're going to be using this welder. This is the Eastwood MP200i. This is a multi-process welder, so it does MIG steel, it does MIG aluminum if you have a spool gun, it does TIG welding with stainless steel as well as aluminum, and you can also stick weld with it. Now you can get the precision that you're after with our foot pedal, as you can see on our table there. So you can regulate exactly how many amps are going into that piece of metal, and you can create as small or as big of a puddle as you want with this welder. Now, being as I'm TIG welding for the very first time with aluminum, I wanted to show you exactly what my results were, things that I found that were beneficial to my particular application that I found in other videos. And I want to share all of that with you in case you are in the market for a multi-process welder like this one. So for starters, the Eastwood MP200i is just a beautiful welder. It has these really nice wheels. These are extremely sturdy. They roll over any surfaces really easily since they're pretty large. We have the capacity for 2 tanks, which is awesome. So we have our argon for TIG welding here, and then we have our mixture for MIG welding on this side. The welder came with both of these regulators, which you can set accordingly. There's these holes here so you can set your welding rods and hide your tubes there that go to the tanks. And then we have 2 hooks on the side. So I keep my TIG torch here, the ground cable, and the MIG torch on this side. It's very easy in terms of using, so this took me a minute to figure out. So for TIG welding, you have to have this grounding clamp hooked up to the positive. So it's reversed polarity for TIG welding aluminum. I think for stainless, you want to have it on the negative, but I'm not sure on that. In case you're wondering, for TIG welding aluminum, you need to have that on the positive. And you can keep your MIG port attached as well as your TIG at the same time. And then we also have 2 ports here. So your foot pedal will go here, and automatically your foot pedal light will come on. So this is the foot pedal. It has an automatic stop feature, so it brings it back up when you're done, which is really nice. Super long cable for this. And then by default, your welder will come with this switch attached to the actual trigger right here. I didn't care for it being on the handle, being as I'm using the pedal most of the time. But if you want the trigger, you can click on it. It'll go to whatever amps you have this set to. So if you have it set for 120, it'll automatically jump up to 120 or whatever you have it set to. Whereas with our pedal, we can fine tune it and we can go to whatever amps up to this amount. As you can see, we have all of our different settings on the digital display. Really easy to use. You just cycle through it. So that's for MIG, DC stick, DC TIG, I think would be for stainless, and AC TIG for aluminum. Now the other cool thing is when you're hooked up with an adapter like this one, it automatically sets your limit to 120 amps as your max. So you don't really have to adjust anything. And then as soon as you have this plugged into a 220 welder outlet, it'll automatically bump this up to 200 amps max. So you can regulate it with your foot pedal up to that amount. So overall, super easy machine to use. I'm really stoked to have this for future projects. I'll show you the inside of our unit here as well. So we have our brand new spool of mild steel there. You can also use this as a compartment for different tips and things of that nature. Nothing too big. The one thing I've noticed is there's not really a place to store the foot pedal. So I just keep it unattached and I keep it in a drawer, and then I can bring it out whenever we need it. So obviously, normally a welder would be a huge investment to have in your garage. Huge shout out to them for sending this out. But just to give you an idea on the actual metal for this project and our winch, we were able to do this for probably under $200. So instead of spending $1,000 on a ladder crane, we were able to spend $200. But even if I was to purchase this welder, I foresee using this a ton. I used my MIG welder all the time, so I was able to sell my MIG welder, and I'll be able to use this multi-process for a bunch of different projects around the home and even for work on occasion. But the device itself only cost about $200. I was able to go to a scrap metal place and get all these aluminum scraps, and I think they're going to work perfectly for this project. So let's go ahead and get into the project, show you the raw items and what we're going to create with those items. All right, so I've done some of the legwork already. As you can see, we've got this kind of fabbed up next to it so you can see it for reference. This is our old ladder crane framing, and I'm going to throw it on this scale just to show you how much it weighs. I'm going to actually have to balance it on here, but it'll give you a rough idea. 33.5 pounds. And this is the crane that we were using, or hoist rather, that we were using to pull up our condensers. This is an 880-pound electronic hoist, 440-pound single-line rating load. So that's probably what we were using. A condenser is not going to be anywhere near 440 pounds, more like half that, maybe around 200. But this guy is also really heavy, a little bit more than the actual frame. So 34 pounds on this guy. So total, this thing weighs like 70 pounds. So I'm really excited to get something different going here. And then this is the new winch that we're going to be using. This is a 2,000-pound winch. We'll show you how light this guy is. Of course, we're going to have a bracket. So those two together were 12 pounds. And this is all the material for our new frame. As you can see, it only weighs 10.6 pounds. So this is just about half of what the old one is. This is what we're using. It's square tubing, and we just cut through this. This is probably overkill, and it's going to take a lot of amps to weld this with this TIG welder. So I'm having to run it on 220 volts, so I can run 200 amps. So I have two of these. Basically, we're just going to match it up here with the old one, and then this main support is going to go down the middle. We're going to do some fat beads on both sides and the bottom, and it's going to be really sturdy. So probably what I'll do next is cut this to length so it'll match this. All right, so this is exactly where we want this middle piece. So we're going to start with this guy right here. We've got our welder set up to 200 amps with our 220 volt outlet here. I'll show you this. I just wired this in. So I put in a 220 volt 50 amp breaker right here, and I just routed it via conduit right here into this box. And we have this 50 amp plug, the same that matches. I'll unplug this just to show you. It's the one that has two hots and a ground. One is bigger than the other. That's all it looks like there. And once I get a 50-foot extension cord, I can just run this into the garage and use it in the garage. But for the time being, I was excited and I wanted to get this done. So we have our argon turned up. We've got that set to about, 30 CFH when it's running, and that seems to be a good gas rate. Okay, so what I'm gonna try and do here is I'm gonna do like a tack here, tack there. I'm gonna basically do 4 on each of these to hold it in place, and then we can go back through and fill those joints in. All right, so we have a tack here. This was not pretty, by the way. I couldn't get that one to work there. Got one here, one there, and this one I had to redo, or I'm about to redo it. It actually kind of got warped, and so I had to clamp it down, cut that one. I'm going to retack it, and then we'll see how good of actual beads we can put once that's done. This is just all part of the learning process. Nobody gets good at this in a day or a week. It takes a long time, but I'm really thrilled so far, even just to get that and get really good penetration. And I think this is going to be really sturdy. Oh guys, not pretty, but I think it has really good penetration on both of these. We're going to get the other side done. Same thing. This is 1/4 inch aluminum, so this is pretty much tapping out what this welder is capable of. This again is like way overkill, and so typically like with this stuff it'll weld no problem. This is like I think 1/8 inch aluminum, and this is really strong as well, but because I had to have this square, this was all the stuff that I could find, and I think it's going to be really sturdy. But you really have to heat it up and get a good puddle and kind of work it along. Super pleased so far. Again, it's not super pretty, but it doesn't matter as long as it works. All right, so now that we have this base piece built, we're adding on this arm that's going to come out. We've cut it at the right degree there, and we're going to add another arm there, but we can do that with 110 volts. We just have to finish this up with the 220. So we're going to run a bead here and then down the sides, and then of course one on the back side there as well. As you can see, we still have some work yet to do on this. The main structure is built. We're going to add a T-handle here. Now I wanted to take a second to show you this as well. So this is all hooked up to an M18 battery. This is an 18 to 12 volt converter because this is a 12 volt hoist. I'm also going to take apart this button, and I'm going to mount these onto the actual handle of the ladder hoist, so you don't have to have an extra hand for this. So this is going to be really nice. It'll all function off of an M12 battery, so I don't have to bring a power station up to the roof like I've been doing, or run an extension cord. I think this is going to be a really, really nice upgrade. So that's going to get mounted probably somewhere in here. I don't know if this is too close to the actual unit. It's probably fine, but I might mount it a little bit further so that once this is actually up there, maybe down here would be better. But anyways, we'll show you that on the final video. But for the time being, really happy with the welder. Huge shout out to Eastwood for sending that guy out, and I'm gonna use it for many metal projects in the future. All right guys, here it is. This is the finished product. So we were able to get our winch mounted right here, and I don't believe the little winch cover is even needed. It spools up like this, and then it has this little bracket here that keeps these lines from getting all bundled up in one side. Being as we're going up straight and down, that's not going to be an issue. So we have our wires connected, run down to here. We've got the converter mounted via self-tapping screws there, as well as our M18 battery. And for the time being, I hacked the handle off of this. It seems to work really well. Also, this was the last piece that we had to add on. So I made it a lot longer than my old one. You can see how short that one is to give it more leverage on each side. And I think that's going to make it a lot nicer. So yeah, basically, if I can show you this with one hand. So to go down, just press this button. Of course, there's no weight on it, so just drop it down, and then to go up, this button here, and that's pretty much it. I'm actually going to throw it on the scale right now and show you how much this weighs as a full package with the battery. Okay, we're going to zero out our scale. Can just lift it with one hand, no problem. 22, let's say 23 pounds. That is less than our actual frame. Just the frame itself weighed. I could easily lift this with one hand, easily bring it up a ladder. All right, guys, we're gonna test this out. I'm really excited to see how this works. Super light, easy to maneuver. Okay, gonna let out some line. Just gonna hook our rope up to our condenser here. Throw it on the top two rungs. Take it out of free spool mode. And we'll get our slack out.
And there you have it. Now let's bring it back down. Easy as that, folks. Can curl this with one arm. I love it. Well, guys, I am absolutely thrilled, tickled with this. It works great. It felt so solid and so much more easy to maneuver, not to mention how much quicker it is. And the great part is I also just made a reel, so I just brought it up, back down, and this is the second time lifting this unit. And check this out, full charge. We haven't even put a dent in this battery after 4 lifts, basically. So works really well. The winch did not struggle a single bit. It's not even hot, it's a little bit warm, so we're not overworking the motor by a long stretch. Now guys, here's the finished product. Look how light it is and nimble. I absolutely love it. I'm so happy with this. This is even a huge upgrade from the ladder crane, where you have to physically plug it in. Everything is done right here with the Milwaukee battery, and that's gonna make it so nice and easy to use. So a couple of observations that I've made after doing this project is, number one, I didn't realize that the red tipped tungsten is typically for steel, so stainless steel. This worked okay for aluminum. I was able to get really good penetration, but according to everything that I've read, the green is preferred for aluminum. So you'll notice every kind of welding tip has a different color. So you see that this one has red painted at the very end, the other end of the one that we're using while we're welding. And green is typically the one that you want for aluminum. Now, more specifically, since we were doing 1/4 inch aluminum, it's pretty stinking thick. And you can weld with a 200 amp welder, you can weld up to 1/2 inch aluminum with certain methods like preheating. But one of the biggest things that I've found after the fact was having a larger tungsten rod is going to help with thicker aluminum. So an 1/8 inch tungsten rod would have been preferred over this one. So in hindsight, I should have done that. But for all of the thinner gauge stuff, this one seemed to work really well. But I'm gonna pick up some green tungsten rods as well and just kind of test it out. The other observation was that on the 1/4 inch aluminum, I could not form a puddle with the 110 volt adapter. So what I did was I put in an outlet by my main breaker over there, and I'll just run an extension cord out here to the garage. Once that comes in, it's a 50 amp rated extension cord. And as soon as I plugged it into the 50 amp that bumped it up to the 200 amp setting, I was able to form a puddle with the 1/4 inch aluminum and get those really nice beads. Now, again, they weren't super pretty, but I'm really happy with the results as a first-time aluminum welder. I think this project, I'm really happy with it and really happy with this welder. A couple other observations was that I didn't realize this, but with TIG welding, you have virtually no sparks. Whereas with MIG welding, there's no way that I would have been able to do that outside with shorts and flip-flops on. I would have burnt the crap out of my feet with little pieces of slag. But literally there was no sparks with this, so it's much safer than MIG welding in terms of burning yourself or catching something on fire. So I really like that about the TIG feature, and I'm excited to explore what else I can TIG weld and really just having that control with TIG weld. Well guys, I know this was kind of a one-off video, but I hope you appreciated some aspect of it, whether you're thinking about picking up a TIG welder or if you're interested in building a ladder crane yourself. I hope you learned something from this video. Now, huge shout out for Eastwood for sending out this MP200i. They're really DIY conscious and they want to promote anyone who's trying to do stuff themselves, which I'm a huge proponent of. Now, if you're looking for a welder, make sure and check out Eastwood.com and use my discount code HVAC Guy 10 to get 10% off of your order. I want to take just a second to talk about our monthly giveaways valued at between $500 and $2,000. We have some awesome prizes coming up. All you have to do to be entered is join any of our membership tiers right here on our home channel. Just select the join button. Any of these tiers will automatically get you entered. And if you want to see some of the past giveaways, go over to our live tab on our channel and you can see all the past giveaways there. Until next time, you guys be safe. Later.